All right. Good afternoon. I am Anto Budiarjo. Welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon to try and figure out the future of smarter buildings. Just in case you're wondering who we are listed on mondaylive.org as members of this group. And just a reminder that views expressed here are personal, not of any companies or organization. Please do post questions and comments on Zoom chat so we can make this as interactive as we can. And if you do want any of the resources on this slide deck, it is also available on mondaylive.org. So this being the first Monday of a new month, we are starting a new theme, and our theme is how software is eating buildings. And I'm sure we'll have fun with that. This whole thing. So looking forward to that. So we're gonna do our normal news and trend chit chat, and then start the eating the buildings. Just starting to think this week about how BAS companies should really be adapting themselves to add value in this sort of premise of software-driven buildings. Hopefully, we can have some interesting discussions. But before we go there, I'm going to hand it over to Ken for an update from automatedbuildings.com.
Thanks, Anto. I hope I'm coming in clear. I had to switch over to my phone here for some technical problems, but yeah, we're excited now. We've got our programs all set for AHR, and we're now starting to populate them with real people, and it's fun getting everyone accepted, and I'm kind of liking the mixture we have of the industry. We've got a lot of Monday Live folks involved. We've got a lot of other folks in the industry involved in our talk, and it's a good mixing pot of the industry. We're starting to promote some of our sessions, and there's an interview there from Greg and Aaron talking about cybersecurity, and that we're going to do a lot more of that. That's one advantage we have as automated buildings. We can actually promote these and actually link right back to the direct education session. And of course, at the bottom, the other thing that's going on there is the Monday Live session on Sunday. And I think probably Anto and Rick will tell you a little bit more about that. In the middle of our page there, we've got the summary of last Monday's session, and I think that came up good. That was a good way to close out the month, and the system of systems. We also took a run at pulling together some of the thoughts of our guest speaker who was unable to make it last month, and yeah, we were able to do that for Harbor Research, and Glenn Almendinger was not able to speak. So we've kind of summarized some of the stuff that he has on the site, and there's a lot. And I think Glenn has some real good insight into all of this. So I was sorry we missed him talking, but at least it spurred us on to try and create a summation of what we think he's talking about. The other thing is over on the right-hand side at the bottom there, I've listed all of our contributing editors, and it's interesting now because we're starting to see some interaction between the contributing editors, and the latest one is Keith and
Fasil.
Sorry?
Fasil AI.
Yeah. Keith and Fasil. I was actually trying to think of
Thomas.
Danielle.
Thomas, that's a name. As Jack McGowan used to say, I had a brain fart. I think that was probably a good description of it. Anyway, it's interesting just seeing how they perceive AI, some of the new tools that are out there. And I encourage everybody to take their stories to LinkedIn, and we will then kind of relate them back. And I'm hoping that we are able to create some summations of some of this stuff back on automated buildings. anyway, lots of change in the industry. Looking forward to Orlando and today's meeting. Back to you, Anto.
Thank you, Ken. So normal page of links. We have not done much on the Smarter Summit nor the other AHR activities in terms of displaying it here, but we will in coming weeks. Rick, do you have anything to add on that front?
No, it's going to be a fun few days for sure, and we'll have some interesting announcements coming soon. Kind of hoping that some of it would have been already sort of kicked off by now, but stand by for news.
Great. So just to remind everyone, tomorrow is election day here in the US, just in case you didn't know that because you've been under a rock or something. So I just thought I'd just point it out.
I do like a bit of fun on this one. So in Australia, when they do elections, the 6 weeks prior to the election day is a total media blackout on anything. No media, no TV, no internet, no radio. And I will tell you, it is bliss.
The complete opposite, right?
Awesome.
All right. So any other thoughts or news or anything else anybody wants to bring up?
Yeah, I got one. Yeah,
Recording
last week or so, I don't remember, maybe the week before, I posted something on my LinkedIn page how a Nevada hotel was charging for electricity for the guest. And they were charging a $12.95 electricity charge in addition to the room, the taxes, and resort fees, and so forth and so on. My question to the group is this the beginning of a trend?
So that's,
I've often wondered about that, but I don't have a thought.
is this the next steps, Mark, to the airlines charging you for storage, charging you for food, charging you for AirPods?
I don't know, but I mean, am I going to go ahead and check into a hotel? Oh, we're going to have an energy surcharge. We're going to have a resort fee. And if you want toilet paper, that'll be extra. And you can have 1 2-minute shower if you want. I don't know. It's just I'm making fun of it now. But I just found that interesting that they had the gall to do it, obviously, and they didn't tell the guests either when they made their reservation. There was going to be a $12.95 per day surcharge.
Wow.
When I saw that, it did sort of occur to me that that's compared to the actual cost of energy, that's like a million times, or maybe not that much, but it's the cost of energy to stay in a hotel room, regardless of what hotel room. It's nothing near that.
Yeah.
But that's coming from a guy coming from a country that had coin-operated heat in the hotels in the 1980s when you were a kid there.
No, you're right, Jim, because you also, that was coming to hotels I had to go to that where they gave you the phone at the front desk to plug in if you wanted the phone in the
Right.
extra charge.
There was coin-operated heat in London when I was staying there. So it's just back to the future, Anto.
Yeah, they don't have that anymore over there. I was there last week.
But it goes against those moves we were talking about a couple of weeks ago about VAS from SAS, i.e. you only pay for what you use. Should have a meter on each room so you can actually be charged for how much you actually use, huh? Including the toilet roll, Mark.
Yeah, that and the soaps or the lotions, that are in the rooms today. And anyway, enough said. There you go. Something to keep our eyes out on if we see any more.
Actually, just to extend your thought, Mark, on that as it relates to commercial buildings, I have seen in the last probably month or so, RFPs coming out for facility management that is changing to demand-based facility management.
I saw the same.
Yeah.
What is
So
that,
it's-
Anna?
So, if you're familiar with the facility management model of the big guys like
Yeah.
us, forever when an RFP, when a client comes out, I've got 1,000 buildings and I need for you to give me a proposal for the next 3 years to provide FM
Yeah.
services. The process was, okay, you do an analysis, you look at all the history, you look at all their work order history, then you do an estimate. Okay, you need 100 electricians and 200 plumbers and 1,000 cleaners, etc., and you count all the bodies up and you put a proposal together, right? So the ones I'm starting to see now are saying, like, we don't want static numbers. We want electricians, plumbers, cleaners on demand as we need it. So I need a baseline plus a flexible, I don't need electricians on Wednesdays and Fridays, or etc. Clients are looking for proposals and ideas and thoughts in that context. So it's still exploratory days. But yeah, this change is coming.
Interesting.
So we had a interesting LinkedIn thread on over the weekend. It was about the different types of our AI, and really, like, it's a call to action to where we dig a little bit deeper into the differences between different kinds of AI. The three being generative AI, like ChatGPT, where you're generating text or images or whatever. The next one being predictive AI, dog, cat, image classification, where you're generating a decision. And then the final one, which we're involved in, is prescriptive AI, where the output is an action or a command to do something physical. So we really have to distinguish between those three. People are conflating, like they're blending them all together, and nothing could be further from the truth. We're prescriptive AI. So taking action, pretty interesting.
Prescriptive AI, interesting, yeah.
Okay, for the heck of
Okay.
it, a little bit of math here. If a hotel room is 500 square feet and utilities are costing $3 a square foot per year, $1,500 divided by 365, it's about $4.10 a day. So 12 is a little bit excessive.
Yeah,
But that's not a unexpected margin for something like a hotel, right? If you look at the minibars and things, it's kind of that kind of ratio.
I was thinking that maybe it's for a peak charge, demand charge sort of covering, which could be possible depending on the jurisdiction. Where was it, Mark?
Vegas.
It was in Nevada, not Vegas, but it was outside of Vegas in, I forget where.
So kind of the dirty little secret about charging like that, pass-through costs. I remember even in the 80s when my customers used to charge for after-hours AC usage. So there's a minimum load on a chiller. So if you had a 40-story building, you'd have to turn on a minimum of 5 floors. The floor where they wanted the after-hours AC, 2 above and 2 below. That's how the system was designed. And yeah, let's just say, for example, this will never happen, but let's say each one of the 5 tenants wanted after-hours AC. The building would charge each tenant the 5 floors worth of electricity, because that was their minimum, amount of electricity that could generate. So they would get like 25 times, or maybe at the minimum 5 times the revenue. So it became a revenue stream for them. Yeah, I mean, that's the dirty little secret of how this stuff actually works, because you have to have a minimum block of capacity that you have to generate, kind of like a demand charge. But yeah, it's kind of funny.
All right, so we move on.
Sorry for the distraction.
It's okay. All right, so how software is eating buildings. So this is sort of a play on another quote, or actually it's the name of an article that was published in the Wall Street Journal back in 2011 by Marc Andreessen. Why software is eating the world. So that's 2011, that's 13 years ago. So it's been quite a while. And this is kind of the most important excerpt with respect to us, talking about dramatic and broad changes, large swaths of the economy, and talking about overturning established industry structures. So it's really kind of disruptive. And he talks about it being epic. And he specifically talks about real estate being one of those things, one of those areas. And the way he sort of thinks about it is that these are industries that have not typically been software intensive, right? So what he's saying is software eating the world is increasing the intensivity of the software part of it. So the question that we should be talking about today is how must companies in the BAS industry adapt to add value in this sort of framing. So I thought what we would do is we think about this a smarter building dish, and think about the ingredients that we've been talking about the last few months, such as system of systems, digital twin, subscription model, and the whole sort of business model around delivering services and products, the whole sort of open source thing that's happening, artificial intelligence, obviously, cloud native, we talked about a lot, and orchestration, which is really the sort of the notion of composing different things to do what you want, right? To make this yummy looking building pasta. I guess that's what it is. So I'm wondering, I'm going to open it up to the group and sort of the question, which of these ingredients do you want to focus on, and do you think is sort of important from your perspective? And open it up. Who wants to start?
I suppose, and it's a little bit worth saying about what we might be seeing at the moment, as well as what we might be thinking about, because I think when you look at some of the bigger suppliers, they're obviously spending a lot of time and money looking at what they can offer as a cloud solution or applications within the cloud solution. You know, you're seeing, the Johnson Controls and Honeywells and Siemens of this all trying to focus on that rather than the lower end, on-prem stuff, which they've been doing forever. And I think that focus will end up changing perhaps some of the the models where you'll get perhaps product only suppliers down at the bottom end, and people fighting for offering solutions and applications at the top end. I don't know. I mean, are the people seeing that?
Before you guys go, I would add edge computing on here.
Yep.
In addition to your list, Anto.
Okay.
Yep.
I think there's lots of ingredients that you could think of like
oh,
that.
yeah, but anyway. So Roger, with what you just said, so let me ask you this. With an increase by building owners and operators looking to reduce the number of partners, vendors that they have, and really go with less and one only, whatever. Do you think what you just said would run into some brick walls?
Yeah, because I think also you have to split it between the construction phase and the aftermarket. I mean, a lot of these things are the things that are direct with the occupant or the owners. And during the construction phase, it's a different model. You know, you try and sell a chiller to a mechanical contractor saying, well, it's a subscription model. You know, we're just going to charge them for the water they're going to take. He's going to say, how do I mark up, you know, nothing if you're going to provide the chiller for nothing. So a lot of this will depend upon the split between construction and aftermarket. And I do think that kind of brings in that on-prem, you're going to get still a number of separate suppliers, you know, the lighting guys, the control guys, security guys, and then people are going to actually add in things like, you know, air quality once someone perhaps, I mean, it should be built in earlier, but air quality perhaps afterwards, and space management and meeting management. These are all things that are going to be added. So you're going to end up with a lot more, I think, suppliers at the lower level, and maybe more convergence at the cloud level.
I think that's great, great input, Roger, and it just highlights this thing that our whole construction process is broken and always has been, and it needs to be completely redriven. And I see this as like an amazing opportunity to cause the reconfiguration. I think you would have a better time at convincing an owner that what he's been doing is crazy now when he understands this slide and how powerful this will be and how this will change the purchase model. I think you're really onto something there.
And also the sort of comments about the different layers having different products and different services from different vendors. Isn't that the model that happens basically in the IT world? There's lots of different products, lots of different companies that make, you know, things that are sort of on the network layer that they don't get involved in the systems layer kind of thing.
But I guess at the IT level now it's kind of morphed off a site, and so it's one level, isn't it? Really, you know, the data, you know, for financial and other sort of systems are all generated cloud-wise rather than on-prem.
Right, but they all work together.
They do. Well, we're talking about two solutions here, where you've got on-prem and, you know, you've got the OT on site with all the things that we just talked about just now, and then you've got to ship that out and get that data to the people who are perhaps going to provide the application services at the cloud level, you know, on the data that's been generated from site, which is where Mark's edge part comes in, and the middleware kind of disappears to some extent.
All right.
Steve? We can't really hear you. No, we can't hear you.
Can't hear me at all.
Now we
yes.
can.
Now we can. That's
Okay.
good.
Go ahead.
So my input on this is that everything is from a data management perspective is all moving to the cloud. I think we all agree with that, right? So all the front end functionality, if you will, is migrating to the cloud. My concern about all of that is how is it being done, right?
Mhm.
So yes, and what we've talked about for the past couple of months is to leverage open source, to leverage cloud native architectures, et cetera, and other methodologies such as connection profiles to allow these different systems, whether they're on-prem or in the cloud, to be able to interact with one another, right? So the way I see the current large manufacturers operating is they're making substantial investments into their cloud platforms. And I'm sure from their perspective, their goal is to further, if you will, tie up the hands of the building owner such that everything has to come through their cloud platform. So if you think about what would be ideal
is if I've got a bunch of buildings and they're with one manufacturer and I got a bunch of other buildings with another manufacturer, wouldn't it be nice to have a host software, if you will, that's cloud-based that could work across all the different vendors? So there's substitution. So some of us work very well with Google, some of us work with Apple, some of us work with Microsoft, right? And you can, from an IT perspective, you can decide one day I've had enough of name your poison, and I want to switch everything over to the other vendor. I'm able to make those transitions in a fairly straightforward fashion. My concern about how all this gets done in the move to the cloud, are we just transferring the siloing to the cloud and not really solving the fundamental problem of interoperability? So
I would say that's why all of these ingredients are there, because if you look at most of these ingredients, they are sort of structural in nature.
yes,
System of systems, digital twin.
so
And
that's
by the
why-
way, your audio, it seems that when you start talking, is very low, and then it goes up, and then when you stop talking, it goes away again. So I don't know what's going on there.
yeah,
Something you have.
I don't either. I'm trying to do the best I can. So
Yeah.
I'll stop, but that's the point I wanted to make is how is a how? How is this being done? And we need to emphasize all of the things that are on this list such that we don't win a battle, but we lose the war.
Yeah, I would say that's why the orchestration thing is there, because what you're really talking about, right, is the orchestration, how everything happens. And orchestration is a very vague word. I understand that, but that's sort of that's what that implies.
Just the practicality, I think, see what you're saying is that the chiller is intended to last for 30 years. The VAV box is intended to last for 20 years. We don't want to have our software be hardwired to the chiller or to the VAV box and have it not be able to be upgraded more often than every 30 years. We don't want 30-year-old software. We don't want to be locked into the software that came with the chiller or with the VAV box from the manufacturer. Again, just greatly exaggerating the complexity of that. But that's what you're describing, is that we'd like to be able to upgrade our software as software updates are possible without having to rip out the chiller, is the other way to describe it.
Just again, history from the past, when we were in the early days of DDC, we saw exactly this same problem. Is we were buying chillers, rooftops with controls on them, and we stopped doing that. We basically told the consultants to basically provide this equipment with no control.
Yeah.
And we added the control later, and we carried that all as a PC sum. And I think that's sort of the same bold moves that have to be made by educated owners, that they need to understand how powerful this movement is. And it's that a radical a change. It's the whole thing. It's the whole ripping the heart and the logic right out of the building and putting it in the cloud. And once they understand that, then they have to see that that actually leads the process. And I'm very pleased that some of the stuff Anto tipped to me, showing me about what's happening in the future with digital twins, the idea of actually sending this information off to the twin and then having the twin update the building and do what is necessary. Very, very interesting, very bold moves, and certainly what an educated owner can do.
But I think, Ken, going back, to Mark's edge thing, is that I think we probably should revert a little to where the intelligence is on the equipment, because who better to, tune or update the software on a chiller than the chiller manufacturer, because he's got the thousands of these things out there and they can be corrected, and all those, devices, whether they're boilers, pumps, any piece of equipment, the manufacturer probably can offer a lot more to the customers by keeping the software updated. And then the combination of all that data can actually be available to cloud services. But I would have thought that manufacturers and edge devices should, at least have that intelligence these days rather than it just be cloud-based.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Every device has to be able to run without the cloud, without any connection. And that brings up Mark's point about the power of the growing edge and the actual AI at the edge as well. But what you're seeing there is, I think we need to come up with some handoff standards or what we're expecting the equipment to do without being connected to the cloud, and what we're expecting it to do when it is connected to the cloud, which is everything or anything.
Well, remember that part of the cloud is very likely to be in the building going forward. That's the new cloud native architecture. So the cloud becomes really a cloud that goes across, the internet to on-prem with the same consistent architecture. So losing the internet is different than losing the cloud. So when we talk about cloud native, we aren't talking about internet native. We're talking about cloud native. It's a significant and important difference.
But just to harp back on Ken's point about when we changed to DDC, and you look at this list and look at all the discussions we were just having, the world has become so much more complex, right? At least back in the day when we were doing the pneumatic or electric to DDC, that was the only thing we were struggling with, right? Was DDC better than electrical controls or pneumatic controls, which it clearly was. So it was a simple thing for both clients, users, FMs, people to get their head around, because that's the only thing I had to really look at and compare, contrast. Yes, DDC is better for all these reasons, and that was my analysis. Now I've got this list of stuff that you've got on the board here. It's such a broad range of different, sometimes competing, sometimes integrated things. You can have and we've had whole discussions on digital twin or open source or artificial intelligence, and now what you're asking, Anto, is, well, how do I mix this into something that makes sense to me? And I kind of put it in the same camp as, when I go to a salad bar, my problem with salad bars, if left up to me, I make the worst salad possible, because I like all the bits, right? I like tomatoes, and I like egg, and I like this, and I like that, and I throw it all together. And it's the worst salad bar. But then, of course, you get those places. There are some places that have the little cards, right? That go, if you want to make this salad, here are the ingredients, and here's how you mix it, together to get the thing that you specifically want. And then, from my perspective, that just keeps coming around to the lack of the consulting space that we have in our world, right? The poor building owner, user is like, yeah, I know, Anto, you want me to, how do I mix this? If left to me, I'd bring all this together, but it'd be the worst salad I'd ever have.
Yeah,
that's how I do it.
That's a great point, Anno. And I was just gonna comment about that. Danielle said on the chat, like, what about the business objectives? And so, yeah. And first of all, Rick, there used to be this concept that came and went of called fog native computing. So the fog was the close-in cloud. But that kind of, I guess, fog doesn't sound as sexy or whatever as cloud. So yeah, we tried.
It was like fuzzy logic, Keith, was.
Exactly. So, and I'm going to get into that as far as a nuance around the digital twin. But yeah, I agree. If you look at these ingredients for being the minimum, kind of like, the concept of irreducible complexity, it's like if you're missing one of these ingredients, then we don't have a smarter building dish. And I don't think it's appropriate to have two of them seem a little bit too prescriptive. The ones I'm talking about are subscription model. That's a non-starter for some entities from a business perspective. They just don't like subscriptions. So sometimes people want to get a PO, pay for it outright, and be done with it. So that would eliminate like 40% of my business if I just insisted on everybody doing a subscription. I think it's whatever works for the business objective. You're still achieving the same thing. And it's the same thing with open source. I know part of notwithstanding I'm being a part of IBB, but I'm on the Microsoft Azure cloud. So I'm not gonna transform, I'm not gonna rejigger our architecture just to be open source. Because that doesn't work for me. But yeah, I get it. Those are nice to have ingredients. I think it's kind of like optional, to Anno's point. Like maybe you might like onions on your salad and maybe you might not. It might be gross to you. So I think those two definitely, subscription model and open source being prescriptive as part of a smarter building dish, is the wrong direction. And we in this industry tend to push technology and moving parts and along with it, and we should be pushing generic outcomes and those kind of things. Now, my last comment is around digital twins. The way we use digital twins is, yes, we have a model of a chiller, for example, but unlike other people in this industry, we don't run simulations safely on this fictitious digital twin of a chiller. First of all, with AI, there's this concept of ground truth labeling. So the AI doesn't know the difference between a dog and a cat until an expert human labels it. So you label 1,000 dogs and you label 1,000 cats, and then that's the way the AI works. That's how it learns. But you need the human involvement up front. Where's the ground truth labeling for running a central plant? Well, if we knew that, we wouldn't need AI, right? So so it's up to the AI, in my opinion, through machine learning and experimentation autonomously, to discover the best way to run a central plant. And that's along the lines of, so I would call it, instead of a digital twin, we kind of use a Siamese twin. Okay, and that's not I'm never going to adopt that description, because that's not I don't think it'll fly. But yeah, it really is more of a Siamese twin. Yes, we have a model of a chiller, but they're connected in real time. And we're experimenting, the AI rather is experimenting directly on the chiller, not on the twin, because that outcome, that's doesn't matter. Like, that's trying to experiment on I always say, like a simulation of a tornado. Like, nobody can simulate a tornado. And I don't believe we have the technology to accurately simulate a chiller, a complex central plant, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm thinking it's more like Siamese twin, but I'm still going to call it a digital twin for everybody's point of reference.
Jim, you've been quiet so far. What ingredients do you favor here?
I actually struggle with the premise. First off, it was said, you started by saying software has been eating the world for 13 years. I would largely say that it has, and we've been through a complete cycle of that already. And that cycle wound up with everyone charging into these large-scale enterprise applications. And I think we're actually in a post-enterprise application market, because people haven't been successful from a business standpoint with those applications. They haven't been able to make money from the $200 million investments that all the large companies made in enterprise applications. And even all the people that are in the analytics business, like myself, no one's hit the cover off the ball. The real truth is that the adoption of the technology is very limited. And I think on this call, we have known for many years some of the reasons that's true. And I'll reiterate the principal one, which is that the procurement model of upfront first cost, where the dollars are allocated, doesn't do a thing for almost everything on this board, which is an operating cost value. So until we get the industry into alignment there, I think that's the major disconnect. I think all of these things are on journeys that are well along, and the technology is frankly maturing much more quickly than the business acumen of owners in particular, because owners are not forcing this change to look at life cycle costs where the dollars really are.
People hear me?
No, Steve, you're still in and out.
The thing is that you need to start and just keep on talking and don't stop. When you stop, the audio goes away.
Okay,
So,
I'll keep talking.
yes.
So the thing, Jim, I like what you're saying. And with regard to the enterprise piece, so the challenge with the enterprise piece is by definition expensive, right? And so if we implement the model here that's described, the cloud native model, I'm betting that it will allow for the functionality that is being accomplished with the enterprise software to be done at a much lower cost. And so we turn this from an enterprise into a scalable environment where volume becomes a possibility for the millions of buildings that otherwise couldn't afford an enterprise solution. What do you think about that idea?
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something that could move the needle forward a lot. It's lower cost, but there's still a major lacking component, and once again, that's labor, right? Because in order to take advantage of all of these value propositions, we need people to go out and fix things that are broken, because largely it's hard to optimize systems that are broken to start out with. So we still have we have a lot of structural operating cost issues that are preventing a lot of value from being recovered. And that's enterprise operations value, reliability value, energy value, risk value. You'll go down through all the silos. But I think that what we can do as a group is to get that cost down of those enterprises. But we need to get into the business wheelhouse and get people to think about their businesses differently. Instead of this concept of the owners stealing from the vendors during the construction cycle and the vendors stealing back over the life cycle of the building, that's not a good way to run a railroad. It's the way this industry has always run. I think that if we can break that lock as to who's really paying for what and what are they getting, I think it'll unlock a huge amount of value and wring out that 20% waste that's built into every building that's built.
I agree, Jim. I mean, I think we just have a tendency to lump everything together. I think that's human nature, but especially with us in this industry, like we need to bifurcate some stuff here. For example, your what you mentioned about you can't optimize stuff that's not operating correctly, and that's 100% true. But it's not like that. Okay, so there's 20. I've never seen a building or enterprise customers portfolio where there was more than 25% of broken equipment. It just doesn't happen.
Agree.
It just doesn't happen. That's not reality, guys. So yes, we need the fault diagnostics and all that stuff on the 20 to 25%, but we're missing, it's almost like fool's gold, I sometimes call it. Like we're missing on the 75 to 80% of the equation, which really drives the needle way more as far as energy efficiency is concerned. It's all the stuff that we think is running well because it's not an alarm, there's no discomfort, blah, blah, blah. That's the stuff that we're missing out on. We're missing out on the 75 to 80%. And by the way, anybody that doesn't believe that, I challenge you to have a 30-minute session, and I will show you that is in fact the case.
So last week, towards the end of our show, I think I got that right. If my memory serves me right, Rick, you were going down the why just looking at software is sort of an important thing.
Yeah, the software is redefining industries, and we talk about how we've been doing the same thing for 15 years or 30 years here, but what you can do with software now versus what you could do with software 5 years ago, 3 years ago, is totally different. And one of the things Keith talks about is the optimization that artificial intelligence can do. You couldn't do that very well 5 or 10 years ago, but in every industry right now, the industries are being redefined by digital transformation, and the digital transformation is coming from new software or old software that's being adopted to use new techniques. And the amount of efficiency that the digital transformation is delivering to these different industries is staggering. So it's across all different facets of the ecosystem of that industry. So software that was written more than just a few years ago is going to need to go through an upgrade cycle to become compatible with the new capabilities of the new technology, whether it is AI or whether it is the new cloud native platforms, so any software that was written before Kubernetes caught on might be the way to describe whether that system is modern or not. And a lot of the adaptation that'll be necessary for the quote older systems isn't brain surgery. It's fairly minor to be able to adapt older systems. And then over time, those vendors can rewrite their code to be more natively cloud native. But that's going to be something, and again, we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now. We're going to be highlighting more and more of what the Linux Foundation is showing as the way forward of using new techniques to write software in a different way to be able to deliver business outcomes in a completely different way. And that's, unfortunately, we can't talk about some of that today, and we can't talk about it last week, but hopefully by next week, we can actually, take the covers off of some of the things that we're working with the Linux Foundation on.
Actually, if there's a moment, I'd like to go back to last Monday as well. And when we ended up the conversation, we were talking about the digital experience in the building, which is probably so significant that it should be one of the major ingredients of the dish. And what we were talking about is show me your app, and how easy the people using the building could interact with the building is like a new driver that we haven't, a whole market, a whole business model that we haven't really looked at. So that whole digital experience, how does the building look to me on an app? How does it work with IBB? All of those things is a significant piece that gets into the pot there. Certainly completely agree with Rick on the open source and the Linux approach.
So where do we go from here? How do we make this dish?
Another observation I just see of the dish is the dish would be a great mandatory requirement or a table of contents for a request for proposal for a new system. These are issues that need to be dealt with. So just simply what you've written there, if I've got a request for a proposal for the smarter building, these are some of the issues I'd like you to address in your proposal.
So that's coming from a building owner or operator that wants the maximum amount of software that Rick was talking about to enable all of the systems, all of the apps to work with each other.
I'm saying explain your proposal. What's your proposal? How are systems handled in your proposal? How is digital twin handled? And some of the things Keith said is that it may not be handled. And so he answers that. I use Siamese twins. So here's why. So that's great, but we get that information right up front. So these are some of the things. The other one that needs to be in there is the digital experience.
Yeah, and they're nuanced. So I mean, maybe a little bit more specific what we're trying to achieve. Like, for example, on the subscription model, I would think that's buyer flexibility or engagement model. So it could be, having the flexibility to pay for it and consume it the way you want to. So it's more of an attribute for success or flexibility, subscription where that makes sense, and outright purchase with a PO where that makes sense for other buyers. I think it's buyer flexibility or engagement flexibility, something like that.
Yeah, each of these bullet points on this list achieves something or tries to achieve something. So that's
Yeah.
almost like the taste of the meal, right? If you put
Right.
chili powder, it makes it hot, right? So if you make a subscription model, it gives the owner a choice.
Perfect
Okay.
example.
That's right.
because, yeah, taste is subjective.
That's right. Do you want chili powder? I mean, I might
Right.
not like chili powder in my salad, right? Or
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah. That's
Which
the
is
point.
kind of back to my point and a little bit to what Keith and Danielle were talking about. What's my business? What is the business impact I'm looking for, right? And you know, am I looking for a salad? Am I looking for a pizza? Am I looking for what am I looking for? And from
Or
that
Lily,
context,
pardon the pun, what's their appetite?
what's
for
their
example?
appetite? Yeah.
I mean,
And I know it's a bit of a
that's it.
chicken and egg thing. Sorry, keeping in the model. You know, if you've never seen a pizza before, how do you know you want a pizza, right? Until I show you a pizza.
Yeah, hold the anchovies on that.
On the subscription model, I wanted to combine a couple of things that said, it's like, we don't want to just do rent the bad, old, expensive enterprise software of the past. You know, the point about subscription model that's now possible, and the reason that so many IT firms are going to subscription model, is because they can do software differently, which allows the subscription model to actually be possible, not just a rent the stack of diskettes like you could have done 15 years ago, but actually do software differently to allow for the delivery of software, the outcomes of software to be done differently. So now the subscription model, again, it's not just rent versus buy the old stack of diskettes, it's actually do software differently and allow for a different business model.
Yeah, but there's that whole OpEx versus CapEx thing there. So that's the main.
No, that's my, I guess my point, Keith, is that this is not rent versus buy. This is rent something completely different than what you were able to buy before. And that's the subtle thing that the point I'm trying to make is that software companies like the Oracles and the Microsofts and everybody now that charges by the month rather than by the box of diskettes, it's because they can now do they can deliver their software value through a cloud native architecture where they couldn't do that 15 years ago when you had to go to the store and buy the box of diskettes. So it's a different capability, not just a different delivery or rent versus buy mechanism.
Well, it's a different delivery that changes what you can deliver, right? Or how you deliver it. So you deliver a diskette, that's a very physical thing. You do it once a year, that's kind of okay. But if you can deliver it continuously, you don't have to wait a year to deliver it. You can deliver it every day or every month or whatever. So the change of the delivery changes the type of software you can make.
And the economics of, instead of everybody having their own hard drive on their own computer, you're leveraging the big,
Right.
the centers in the sky, and you should be able to get lower damn costs because of that. I mean, if you think about just the economics of scale, and that's just a simple example. New software architectures are delivering at much lower development cost than what the old way was.
And you got to look at it like this too, is that everything you just said, Rick and Anto, I agree, in that by as a service or a subscription model, let's say at a given point, you're a supplier is able to provide 20 different things, whatever they are. And as a business owner, I'm not ready for 20 things right now. I'm only ready for 5, and I'm ready to step up and select my 5 based on my outcomes that I want to achieve at this given point in time. But then knowing that, oh, I can go back and get 15 other things when I'm ready makes a lot of sense versus waiting to your model, Rick. I gotta wait till the next diskette comes and whatever the case is. I don't want that. I don't want it. And so I think the ability to give the buyer choice is what this, at the end of the day, that is a major value proposition that needs to be part of the conversation.
Another
just
big
dig-
advantage of subscription is that you kind of get to vote immediately, because if you don't like what it is you're subscribing to, under the terms of your contract, you can stop that and start another subscription with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's one big difference between the subscription, is that you don't have so much skin in the game. You don't physically own the software or the licensing and all that kind of stuff. It's basically, I've got this one fee and it's controllable, and it's, yeah, I just think that that's just a different service. And I think there's way more value in the subscription service than there is in the, I think anybody needs to rethink buying this stuff, especially in today's markets.
Look at,
I do want to circle back to Daniel's point to one of the challenges I've seen across several. Every time you bring a lot of this new tech in, change management is so crucial. We've seen stuff fail because of that, and I have a favorite. I won't say who and I won't say what, but client case study from my perspective, where the guy said, years ago, everyone told me the platform has to be platform X, and I did platform X, and nothing changed with my guys. And then 10 years later, someone said it had to be platform Y, and I went and put millions of dollars and I put in platform Y, and my guys didn't do anything different. And now you guys are telling me it should be platform Z, and tell me what's going to change my guys. How are you going to manage the change from the operators? Because today, all you're doing is just adding another dashboard to his desk, and nothing changes. And that's a challenge. And I see that, right? And in that, the rate of change and the rate of new stuff, when you bring it down to the operator level, it's like, guys, so what? And change management is a big deal in our space.
Yeah.
Is that kind of pushing your salad a little further? Is that kind of like, I tried the house salad and I didn't like it, and I tried the Caesar salad and I didn't like it. And there's a different way of getting your salad. It's called a salad bar, which means you have to stand up and walk. So it's a different delivery. It doesn't come to you, you go to it. That kind of thing. I know it's not.
Yeah, I mean,
perfect.
it's a bit of that, but okay, to extend your analogy a bit further, but then I have to have a waitress come out or waiter come out and say, okay, we don't serve the salad. You have to go stand up, and you got to go get your plate, and you got to get your utensils, and you got to start on the left-hand side, and you got to go through and pick your stuff, right? Someone has to explain
That's
someone
change
to what to
management,
do. That's change management, right? And that's not, and in our space now, a salad bar is easy to explain because I can see it, right? In our space, it's really complex.
I have a comment around it. I have to laugh because of, around the lines of, the necessity being the mother of all invention. We came out with the first BAS subscription model in like 1999 at my first company, Silicon Energy. It was called mybuilding.com. Literally, I was the first registrar of that domain, and we failed miserably. But we're offering a BAS system by subscription. It was like $19.95 a month per building or something like that. And we failed miserably. We spent millions of dollars on marketing, and we had a whole separate division to sell this thing. Nobody wanted it. But it's not like I'm this like really like insightful visionary. Want to know the reason why we did it was because we could streamline our delivery and we didn't have to go on site and install software and deal with SQL Server setup and security issues with DCOM and all that stuff. So we literally didn't do it like we were trying to be visionary. It was just more profitable for us to do it. I mean, we wanted to have consistency and economies of scale, and that's why we invented the first SaaS subscription BAS system. It wasn't trying to be ahead of the game. We were just trying to be profitable.
So to match that with what Anna was saying, that's like what you did was you created a salad bar, but you didn't tell people how to use it. You didn't give them the utensils. You didn't do all of the right things.
Yeah.
or people didn't know how to use it, and therefore it didn't work because, yeah, but
There's also the motive, which circles all the way back to Jim Lee's opening points, right? There's the motivation piece. Because if you tell me you used to deliver me the salad to my table, but now I'm doing it with the salad bar, my first reaction is, oh, like to Mark's hotel thing. Now you want me to now you're going to get me to do your work. For why? Why would I want to do that, right? The successful folks are going to say, because now you can build the salad that you love, right? And we're actually going to make it $10 cheaper as a result. Okay, now you've got my attention. Now back to Daniel's, what's the outcome? What am I delivering? Because the first reaction is, I see, I have to do the work now, but I'm going to pay the same bill. Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
I've been selling change management with analytics for the past 15 years now.
Right.
The problem is people aren't necessarily ready to buy it yet, because you don't buy change management from somebody in the building automation industry.
Right.
You buy it from McKinsey, Bain, BCG, and others.
Yeah.
And it's been very, very hard for us to break through that, because people in our space don't sell it. People in our space aren't accustomed to buying it. So even though they admit they desperately need it, they don't really know how to do it. And they, when a consulting company sells change management, they get paid for it.
Right.
We don't. It's basically considered table stakes, something that you have to do to even get people to use the product. So those are the kinds of changes that I talk about that we need to make structurally with the owners.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're way
Yeah,
over
actually,
time, so
just
we're gonna wrap.
Can I just wedge something in here? You asked where now, and I'm thinking where now, with just everybody said, is how do we serve? How do we serve this change? You got this plate, you've created the idea of a plate. How do we serve that plate? How do we best do that? So that's where we should probably be heading to next Monday.
Okay, that's a great wrap. Thank you, Ken. I was gonna ask you anyway. So great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
You.
Great to see you next week. Have a great week, and
Conversation.
remember to vote
Yeah, get
tomorrow.
out and vote tomorrow, you guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.